So moving on to ordinance and resolutions, we have an ordinance 2024-15, an ordinance amending our budgets from 2024 to reflect our final year adjustments to the city's 2025 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Discussion? I'm sorry, that's you.
So if I can
More
start
than
us
that,
off, then I'm going
yes.
to hand it over to these two. We have many large projects that, especially construction projects, that take multiple years. So we have to budget. We have to budget them during multiple fiscal years. So imagine if we have $1 million project that's going to go over 2 years. We don't spend $500,000 one year, $500,000 another year. We do our best when we set the budget for the next year to sort of guess how much we're going to spend this year, how much are we going to spend next year. And so if we're going to spend $400,000, we need to appropriate $600,000 next year. We can get close to that $400,000. So what's happened is now that we have finished up the previous fiscal year, we know how much we spent in the previous fiscal year. Now we have to adjust the current year's budget to reflect that. And so I'll turn it over to Tamara.
That was
Thank you, Tamara.
very good summary, Mayor. So the way that this exhibit is laid out on here, the first section is the rolling forward, the projects that needed to be trued up for the budget for the continuing projects. That's actually the first two sections on there. The first section is related to general fund. That next section is related to our stormwater projects. And then we also have on here the upfitting for the new command post needed to have some rebudget. They didn't finish that project. And then related to the flood back in May, we need to add some appropriation. By the time that happened, we didn't have the FEMA money appropriated. It happened too late in the year. So we need to add that so we can do those repairs and take care of the items that insurance didn't cover, almost exclusively related to the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also need to, do some additional updating related to the budget, adding some funds for landscaping services. Those come out of our tree bank, which is a reserve set up, along with a little bit of additional funds added to our Learn Not to Burn program supplies. That again is a reserve, so it's coming out of those reserves. We did get some unexpected or unanticipated donations related to Pig Fest that we need to appropriate and increase the revenues related to those.
I have a question about that. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Where did that come from? The $5,100 for donation?
Sumner County Tourism.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. And then the last section that is on here are changes with the reorganization of some staffing, moving staffing from executive to administrative services, and then making some classification changes there. And Jesse may want to talk about that a little bit more if you need a little more detail
Hey, Tamara.
related to that.
So one of the things that we did is we've had some things come up in just the past couple weeks that need to be changed in the budget. And since we have an amendment already, we thought, let's go ahead and bring those together.
Yeah.
So that's what Tamara's
Yeah.
doing now.
Yeah. And then that summarized what's there. We also have, and we're hoping that you will recommend to, when you recommend to do the approval of this, that we're hoping that you will incorporate 3 additional items into your approval. That came up since I put this schedule together.
Okay.
I'll give you copies of those. It'll have to be amended again at BOMA, but this way it's all kind of documented ahead of time. So essentially we have 2 projects and then one other item. The traffic signal at Maple Row and Main Street needs to be rebudgeted. It was budgeted in fiscal year 24. It was not rebudgeted for fiscal year 25. So we do need to do that. There's also offsetting revenue for that. And then for Heritage Park, we got our grant award for that for the $3.38 million. So we need to appropriate that and budget for the revenue.
Great.
And then just last week, we got approval for an additional supplemental pay for PD. It's $800 per officer. There was 113 officers that Chief Jones had submitted for that. So we need to appropriate that so we can pay them that supplemental pay.
Great.
So these are 3 additional items that were not on the original listing that were there that we're hoping that y'all will recommend to include.
Great. And then, I'm sorry,
Well, did you ask a question?
I was
Go ahead.
going
You
to
go
talk a
ahead.
little bit about Heritage Park. I've gotten some feedback since that is in my ward and Alderman Goodwin's ward, that people are concerned that it's not going to be a passive park like was recommended years ago. And they're not happy with the draw they feel that will come with the changes that we'd like to make. And if somebody could put me at ease over that, I'd really appreciate it. Andy, if you could say a few words about that.
Sure. And Mr. Cundiff here actually is the person who did the master plan and does that for a living. We had many community meetings where people gave input to say what they wanted to go on that property.
Yeah.
Passive recreation is, I mean, you have to look at it as similar to Sanders Ferry Park. That's a passive park.
Yeah.
Are there events that take place there, like cross-country races? There are, and there are already those at Heritage Park. They have elementary cross-country there frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be no soccer fields, no baseball fields. You're talking about walking trails, an inclusive playground. Any park has got a playground. I would encourage you to look up Little Debbie Park in Collegedale, Tennessee. That is very similar to, if you look at that part of what you will see, I believe. Play space that's ADA accessible, trails that are accessible to all, parking that will include some asphalt, but also a place for overflow parking if we need to, like we do at Sanders Ferry Park.
Yeah.
Picnic pavilions. If you want to add to that, Jeff, kind of, I mean, we have many months, a year of community feedback and input.
Yeah.
And also a committee made up of citizens, city staff, and elected people, and took that master plan to the Parks Board and through the Bowman process. So that nothing has changed from the time that master plan was worked on by everyone to what it is now. It is the same exact plan.
Have you heard anything, Mr. Cundiff, to that same concerns that we're getting?
No, I think Andy here did a really good job explaining what we went through. I mean, we did countless public outreach surveys and community meetings and sought everybody's input.
Yeah.
And then we had an extensive design charrette of multiple consultants and community members that came together to take all that feedback and develop a master plan that was then refined through further processes, working with the committee made up of, both city staff, the Friends of Indian Lake Peninsula group, and the general public. And then we went to the Parks Board, got that approved, and then went to Bowman and got that approved. So the application reflects the long-term vision and all the effort that's been put into this park for countless years and the amount of hours that have been spent.
Right.
So it is a direct reflection of what the community has.
Right. I just wanted to get that on video and the explanation so people could understand, a little bit more about, they're concerned. A lot of people put a lot of their own money into this, and which was a wonderful thing. I couldn't believe that it happened so seamlessly, actually. But I just wanted to make sure we had that discussion for the public.
Yeah, and I'll take the opportunity to say there's been countless volunteers that have spent hours upon hours constructing trails on the property that we currently control. And most of those trails are already completed. There's mountain bike trails, walking trails. We just received our grant for the ADA trail, and we're working through the design of that right now.
Good.
And as soon as that's completed, that piece of property will also be gifted to the community for their use.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you so much.
Can I add to that? I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
So I'm on the board as well, and
your name is?
Jeremy Gretchen.
Okay, great.
So, add to the community part of it, we've had at least 6 Eagle Scout projects that have been done out there, and that is between trail building, bird houses, bat houses, just a lot of, like I said, community volunteer hours. Nothing out of it than just have a beautiful park. So Eagle Scout projects, church groups. We've had HCA come out. I think we're up to 4 times now. The last one, we had over 30 people come from my company, from HCA, to volunteer to help to build it. And some of them don't live in Nashville, but many ever use the park. They just like the effort. So just like to add that. So
That's
again,
wonderful.
sorry for being late.
Oh, that's okay. That's wonderful. Thank you all.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. We want to add to this list with the deer discussion?
May we, is that procedurally
I think we
appropriate?
can.
Can we? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Can I ask some other
Yeah,
additional
please,
questions?
Sure.
we have
I'm so
first.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this, on the addendum here, or this extra sheet that you shared with us, where did this 330 come from? It says true up from project rebudgeted from fiscal year 24.
That's the remaining amount that was not spent or a purchase order was not issued from FY24. So that project started at $390,000. There was a $60,000 purchase order that was issued in fiscal year 24. So $330,000 was remaining to move forward into fiscal year 25.
And so we already adjusted the 24 budget with that amount, that change? Because you said 60 was spent in
Was spent.
24.
So the 60,000 goes against the fiscal year 24 budget.
Right.
We want to move the 330 into fiscal
Yeah,
year 25.
okay.
Got
And
it.
that's for which project? The Maple Row
It-
East Main? It's,
Yes, the traffic signal that'll be right out here
okay.
in front of Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, right, perfect. And then also, what was on the regular sheet here? That would be line, oh, get out of the way. Line 19, other professional services. So that is all, we are going to be reimbursed from FEMA in 25, right? Is that what you said? But we
Oh.
haven't yet.
Hopefully, so
We're
that,
expecting it though.
well, that is the line for the expenditures related to the repairs for the flood.
Mhm.
A lot of those have not been done because we were waiting to see what was approved by insurance, and then anything that's not, then we'll do it and submit our information to FEMA. It's early in the fiscal year. We may or may not receive that FEMA money in the current year, but we have to budget the revenues to offset those expenditures, and then eventually we will receive those revenues.
Got it. Great, thank you. That's all I had.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Alderman Sassy, that's what I was going to ask about as well, but I did have another question regarding tree bank, landscaping services, line 22 tree bank. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about the tree bank and what that is used for?
So the tree bank money, is that from developers that we put into that?
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's some money that comes in
Mhm.
from the, I had to question myself on that one.
Right.
There's a small amount of money that comes in from various developments that goes in specific for landscaping. It's so the money can only be used for landscaping services, whether it be at.
Is it restricted where we put the landscaping?
No, it's restricted that we can only spend those funds for that specific purpose. So
Okay,
when we look at fund balance, this doesn't affect unassigned fund balance. This
Mhm.
comes from a reserve that is set aside and can only do this purpose. So if we
Mhm.
ever do this type of activity,
yes.
we should spend it from this source that can only do this activity.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Great.
And I mean, there's a lot of facts and figures on here, but if you look at page 8, it basically concludes with saying there's a $24,000 800 impact to the general fund, and there's a reduction of about 12,000 to stormwater. So with all these, it's a true up. There's very little impact to the
Right.
general. fund.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that addition of 24,000 in the general fund, does that make us not revenue neutral, or does that not balance the budget? Because I remember we only had it was less than $1,000, I thought, between
Yeah, I don't know.
revenues
what
and expenses.
So I don't remember what the total surplus was on both. I think that was the operating and non-operating.
It was.
Mhm.
Like one of the things we didn't adjust for though, when we look at the local sales tax for this month, we are up 102% of our projected budget. So our
Mhm.
revenues are over a little bit already. One of the things that with that addition though, we're not doing is we're not reducing vacancies that we know that we have right now, which we could have clawed this back to say, hey, we know we have vacancies. We're not paying payroll right now.
Mhm.
We didn't do that because we wanted to show the true impact of what that budget amount is going to be. So we could have not really shown it other than an adjustment, but
Mhm.
that would kind of be skewing the fact that this is going to create more expense in a department. But we have expenses we're not incurring right now because like in the executive department, we're down a staff member. So we're not incurring that, but we're not reducing the budget expense on this report to reflect that.
Sure,
The
yeah,
same in
I get
PD
that.
and all those too. So the goal really wasn't to show that we'd be revenue neutral. We'll be more than revenue neutral based on where we started the year. It was to show the impact of what that position is going to,
Sure.
long term year over year.
So, and I appreciate your question because I think he's leading toward the point that we don't want to be in the state comptroller issue with.
That's
it.
right.
So,
That's where I was headed.
yeah.
Yeah, so at mid-year is when we really look at revenues and we do a true up, and we'll have a larger group of what expenditures and revenues look at that point. I mean, typically in the last few years, our mid-year has put us in a better position as far as our balance of our budget.
So when we submit though our budget amendments, because I'm assuming we've already submitted our budget to the comptroller, right? So when we submit these amendments though, is that going to put up a red flag that we're now not in compliance with
I
that?
think the percentage difference
No.
would not touch their
And the
issue.
comptrollers, you can use fund balance. The comptroller doesn't have any problem with you using fund balance.
So this is coming out of our reserves, of our savings.
It would come out of our undesignated fund balance,
Okay.
just that money that really is not earmarked for anything. And you're allowed, the comptroller allows you to use your fund balance for certain,
Okay.
certain years, you're gonna have projects where you're gonna use that fund balance.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, and based on, like you said, based on how this is looking, it'll probably all balance out anyways.
We're gonna be
It should
good.
better that way.
Yeah, right.
Good,
Yeah.
looking good. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
And we'll get to that.
All right.
So, to add to this,
Yes,
let's have a discussion on,
deer monitoring, deer herd monitoring committee.
your herd.
Yes, that's
Control
the
and
one.
There you go.
That's it, that's it. And our chairman, Gerald Barrett is here. But what we've come up with as the liaison to that board, we've been working very hard with USDA, TWRA, TWRFA, all the other A's and all the other alphabet people that are there. And we've gotten good feedback from the professionals. We've gotten good feedback from the citizens. We've gotten good feedback from the state. And as a summary, I'm going to ask our chairman to fill us in on details of what we're looking for in the next year as part of the recommendations from those agencies. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Let me sit in.
Sure.
Appreciate it. So over the last year, we really spent our time getting our plans together. The initiative this spring that you all funded, we thank you for that, for the pamphlet, and of course we had the deer workshop this summer. So we feel like we've got our foundation in place. Over the next year, our initiatives, and again, I'm going to give a more thorough breakdown on these in September
Okay.
at the full briefing. But the education community initiative and communication piece is still going to be number one. Please don't feed the deer. Please don't feed the deer. Please don't feed the deer. Watch out for deer in the wintertime. If the fawns are there, leave them alone. All those kind of things. And by the way, please don't feed the deer. And if you want to hunt your property and those types of things, here is TWRA. Here is depredation opportunities through TWRA. So those are key pieces. Another big piece of our initiative, and this is something that has been asked for by multiple aldermen, is, what are the numbers? And so a big piece of what we're doing this year is really getting the collection of data refined. For lack of a better term, a deer dashboard. What are the deer collisions looking like? How many depredation permits are being issued by TWRA? How many deer are being harvested within the homeowners that are doing that? And what do those numbers look like? How many carcasses are being removed by Public Works? And so we're trying to build that dashboard. That's going to be a pretty robust component for this coming year. And of course, encouraging people and making them further aware of what is and what is not allowed within the city limits for TWRA during deer season and depredation, is a big piece of that. We feel like we've come a long way in toward eliminating all the ambiguity on that. I think that we're more clear on that, and people can have direct resources now through the website and, you know, the work that we've done with Casey and everyone else through the city communication. So we're doing all of these things, of course, and we're also going to ask the city to really emphasize the enforcement of the ordinance.
Yes.
And I think we've done a good enough job of letting everyone know what it is. It's time to say, okay, we've let everybody know, gee, everybody's gotten a pamphlet at their house. And by the way, it is against the law to do this. So all these things together, the passive fencing, all the things that are part of the communication pieces. Then the question becomes, are the things we're doing working? And, you know, and so the only way to know that is to have an ongoing a survey program. USDA is in the process of finalization of equipping a helicopter with their FLIR technology, which is your forward-looking infrared technology, pretty much, you know, military type, done with a civilian application. And so their recommendation is that we do twice a year surveying. One would be in the fall, right after foliage drops. This captures of what was the deer birthing season mortality rate through that point, and then in the spring, which is post-hunting season. And so then we would know what the population does in that. And then over the second year, then we're going to be able to know, okay, during that March to November season, is the population continuing to explode? Is it leveled off? Is it going down? And so USDA feels like it's a minimum of 2 years on this, on a twice-a-year program. Candidly, I probably setting for future days, not getting ahead of ourselves, but I don't see why that would not need to be continued as we could, because this problem's not going away in 2 years. Our goal is to make progress over the next few years, and we have some other initiatives that we're going to do, which I really don't want to take your time tonight to get into, Alex.
Right.
Encourage to further expand on 24, 25 higher initiatives that we're going to present to you. So what we feel is the right recommendation to pursue at this point is the twice-a-year survey for a minimum of the next 2 years.
And what is the cost?
$8,500 per survey.
Okay.
So it's $17,000 annually.
Yes.
For that, and that would be again it would be March, November over the 2 years. Yes, ma'am.
And that would be a 1 + 1. Ideally, we would go ahead and get the approval as soon as we can. That's why we've come in before the budget and BOMA sooner rather than later, because the season's hitting upon us. We have to get this scheduled as quick as we can,
Right.
so we can get them in the air and tell us what our numbers are right now. We need some data. Everybody's looking for data to help control and make the right decisions regarding our deer herd population and our control measures. So we're doing our best to get the data that everyone's requesting and that we need, frankly, to move ahead.
So can I ask why 2 times a year is needed?
Sure. So there's 2 key seasons that occur. One is when the deer are proliferating. Okay, and according to what USDA tells us, is a deer herd will expand based upon the key factors that are available to them. So Mother Nature says there's plenty of food, there's plenty of cover, there's plenty of everything we need. Gee, we're going to have more twins and triplets and even quads. And that is the biological component of that. And so understanding what that birthing season and that component looks like from March to November is important. Then the second piece of that is what does, of course, hunting season is, you know, basically for the most part, November to March, or November to the end of January. So then the question becomes, what impact did the current things that we're doing have upon that? So, you know, this past year, for example, there were non-depredation permits issued by TWRA within the city limits. Don't know what that number is going to be yet for this coming year. We do know roughly, or we will know, they will know once those numbers have been finalized, how many deer were harvested in that permit. And I think it's important to know that while our percentages are really way off on that, you know, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of reduction in herd to start moving those percentages. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you, for argument's sake, you know, there were 100 deer harvested out of 1,000 deer population, you've reduced the herd by 10%. Now the question then becomes is, did the herd increase more from March to November, more than that 10% that you just targeted? If it did, you're going backwards.
Got it. Okay.
So
That makes sense.
So that's because we asked that same question. I know there's been some concerns raised, and certainly we want to be prudent in anything we ask for. But as those questions have been asked, you know, I've learned more about, and I thought I knew a lot about deer, but I've learned more from an education perspective in the last 13 months. And I truly believe that it's the right approach.
So by not feeding the deer, the expectation is that there's going to be less of a food supply for the deer, right? Which may reduce the birth rate, or what?
So-
how is that marketing initiative going to impact the deer population?
Great question. And Casey, has the USDA presentation been put on the website from that he did at the workshop?
I honestly am not 100% sure at this time if it got edited in place, but if not, it will be very quickly
so
with a push.
The USDA workshop that he did in the spring, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I doubt you've had time to do it because it just happened, but I know it's going to be, and that will go a long way toward helping everyone understand the answer to that question. The best as a layman I can give you an answer is there's really multiple pieces to that. One is they did a big presentation on passive fencing. You know, there was an education component on how to protect your vegetation within your yard, how to keep deer out of your gardens through physical barriers, through sprays, through different deterrents that he put forth. So that, along with the feeding piece, the goal would be to start reducing the amount of available food.
Yeah.
Then, so in and of itself, would that reduce the population? Probably not. But the goal is to slow down that source. And of course, as part of that too, let me add one more piece of that. There's the deterrent also means, part of the deterrent means cutting back vegetation, making the deer less comfortable in the area. And that's part of the goal, is to make them less comfortable. And then of course, even more or less comfortable come deer hunting season and deprecation team, and the goal would be to make them more that way. So the goal would be between those two pieces, that by reducing the available food sources, and then the other piece of it, that over a 2-year period, we will start to see movement. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to be where we're going to be at our goal in 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think that,
I think the goal is improvement, right?
the goal is to start moving the needle in a positive direction instead of where we, where we're not.
Yeah.
So that's that.
And the good thing, if I may, the good thing about this approach is that we have studied elsewhere throughout the nation. Other cities have had the same problems and experienced the same situations that we have. So we're not having to reinvent the wheel, but to follow a tried and true game plan as recommended by USDA, TWRA, et cetera, at this point.
Yeah. So when I heard this was possibly coming to our board, I asked Chief Jones actually to pull some numbers for me. And I asked him just in the peninsulas where we had the study. And since August of 2021, so just 3 years, we've had 79 car crashes because of deer, just in that area. That's significant.
It's over 100 a year within the city.
Wow.
Within the city as a whole, it's 100.
I'm speaking, it averages between 80 and 100 a year.
Okay.
Citywide. And I think excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm a little ADD and I get ready to say something. Sometimes I don't do anything. But, so please
My wife
forgive-
says I do the same thing. So,
So please forgive me, but I think it's important to note too that the only crashes that are captured in that statistic are those that an officer is dispatched to.
Right.
That makes,
So
that's a good
even
point.
if they're called into the, whatever the,
ECC.
thank you. If they're called in ECC, if a officer is not dispatched, that is not captured. So, and of course, if somebody hits a deer at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a pretty good bet that they're not calling the police to come out and work that accident.
Or if it's just a minor as well. So,
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to be a little
either
bit-
way, though, it's a significant issue.
It is.
And so being able to track these efforts, I think, is incredibly important. So thank you very much.
Anybody else have anything else on that?
Anyone have any other questions? Okay, no,
Do you want to make the motion to?
I would like to make the motion to add the request for biannual surveys to be completed by USDA at a cost of approximately $8,500 a survey.
And I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so now let's vote on this entire list of changes.
Okay,
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So this ordinance has
Moved
moved on.
Yes,
Move
good.
on.
All right.
So we can move on to other agenda items. Tamara, if you want to take us through them, we don't have a
Thank you.
lot of time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Gerald.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I think y'all are really familiar with most of these, although I do have a new report for you this month. So we'll start, the first one in your packet is the state shared sales tax. We only have 1 month in here. We have the month of July. Revenues came in right where we expected them to on that, looking a little bit higher than last year. A little bit over where we expect our budget to be at the end of the year. So I think that's looking
But we
good.
are very
Yes.
conservative on that budget.
We're all,
Aren't we?
we always try to be a little bit conservative on our budgets with the sales tax.
Yeah.
It just is, I think it's prudent to do that.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
The next one is our local option sales tax. This does not include the new half-cent. That is
Right.
on a separate report. So this is just our original existing state shared sales tax. Came up, over 100,000 more than what we received last year for July. And we're about 2%, targeting about 2% above our budget if we kept on the same trajectory for the remainder of the year.
Please remind me, when did we decide we would vote to incorporate that half-cent sales tax relief? When did we do?
It went into
The grocery?
The grocery,
yeah.
February is when that takes effect.
That's what, okay. I know we were trying to debate whether to do it sooner, before the holiday, or after the
Yeah,
holiday.
that's not included on here.
Yeah,
at all.
that's right,
Yeah, that's
okay.
not on this one. This is the original portion of the local
Okay.
option. And our hotel motel, we've for the month of July, revenues are up a little bit. We should see those revenues increasing a little bit. The one hotel that was damaged in the tornado is back online. We have had about 3 days worth of reservations in the month of July, but now they're back on. So we should see one whole more hotel on those revenues.
Good,
So those
yeah.
revenues should be
Well, I'm just glad
climbing
they're
up.
back open.
Me too.
Yeah.
For their sake.
Absolutely.
Great.
Investment, we ended last year on a very high note. The first month of this year, July, is a little bit lower than it was last year. We had 2 very large payments that we had to make in July, so the amount of money we had available to invest was reduced. We had to pay almost $2 million for the city share for the Walton Ferry realignment project that had to be paid to the state up front. We paid that in July, so
Okay.
that's why a couple million less to invest for the majority of the month impacts those revenues.
Great.
Our stormwater fund, there really isn't a whole lot to report. We've received no revenues yet. Those are tied to the property tax collections. It's very common the first couple of months of the fiscal year for us to not receive anything, but come October, we should start to have some receipts on those.
Okay.
Yay.
And then the last one is our new PIP fund report out. This one is a 2-page document as opposed to the single page, just so we provide a little bit more information on this. first month for the month of July, we received just over $800,000 for our first month of collections for this fund.
Very nice.
We are, if we continue on that same path, we're estimated to be a little bit over budget, but that is skewed just a little bit because come February is when that portion for the grocery tax will fall off. So we'll see those revenues start to dip after we hit
Okay.
The last few months of the year. We really have only had just a couple $1,000s of actual expenditures so far. And then the second page, we have a summary of what was budgeted for the 4 categories. And then we're showing whether these projects or line items are in progress. And then when they're completed, we'll note that they're complete just to give a little more, a fuller picture. And then you'll see on the line that's for the fire truck, we have issued a purchase order for the purchase of the fire truck. And I listed those out because a lot of these items will be in progress for a substantial amount of time. So that way we can show, we have $1.9 million out there for a fire truck.
Thank you very much. This
Very,
is
very
great.
good.
Yeah.
Put together.
Thank you.
And then, so
Is this available online as well?
it will be, I was gonna go,
Okay,
so
all right.
this is what I'll be presenting here every month. And then working with Casey, she's put together a web page that should be going live it's live now. So it will
Great.
have this information once I give Casey the PDF of it, or do you already have the PDF of it?
I just need the PDF of this and I'll stick
Of
it on
this,
there.
and then there's a bunch of the graphical stuff. I mean, she showed you all last time at Boma.
Yeah.
There's, so a lot of information out there for you all, for the public. I think it'll be really helpful for people to see.
Great. Thank you so much.
How long, Jesse, this may be a question for you. You may know what I'm going to ask. $2 million for that fire truck. What is it, 2 years? How
They
long?
gave us, I think, over 3 years.
3 years.
36 to 48 months is what the timeline is on receiving it.
Wow.
Wow.
I think they build spacecraft. Do
Right.
they not?
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
All right. Any other business?
Could you slip him a 20, make him go a little faster?
Any other business? Can I get a motion to?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much,
Thank you all.
Tamara.
Wow.
Thank you, ma'am.
3 to 4 years.